What's new and what's happening in the fast-paced world of everyday professional life? We keep you up to speed on the daily hustle and grind of today's industry pros and what they may be up to after hours.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Hustle and Grind podcast of KMC, episode 7. So we're here in a beautiful podcast room in KMC Gamma, one of our 25 locations. And to be fair, this is my first time to do a podcast, but I'll try my best to make it interesting. Hope you enjoy, guys. I have two guests, Rob and Nate, from our beautiful client, ClearSource BPO. And I will start with an introduction of a couple of words about Nate, who worked for BMW Bank, part of BMW Financial Services, where he was managing the outsourcing of customer support for BMW Visa Signature credit card to third-party call centers. And it was during this time in BMW that he and his colleague, Rob Goeller, sitting next to me, had a realization that the big player call center industry were only focused on the efficiency, not quality. So this is when they launched ClearSource BPO in 2008, which currently provides premium customer care services, phone, chat, email support, as well as other bank office functions on behalf of other companies. So also Nate became a student of today's thought leader Simon Sinek, who I love a lot as well. Recently read a beautiful book, Start With Why. Highly suggested, guys. Brené Brown, Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins, and others. Nate even gave himself a promotion. He once made himself the team leader of 10 customer service representative for 6 months so that he could experience whether the leadership ideas he had read about would work in the real world. So that's kind of interesting. So these days, ClearSource is a much stronger footing with nearly 800 employees spread across US and Philippines. And Nate is able to spend majority of his time during doing things that he really likes, which is mountain biking and other beautiful things he does. Nice, Nate. Thanks for this introduction. It's very nice. I also know that Rob is into cycling and sports. So Rob, maybe I don't really have your biography here. Maybe a couple of words of introduction from your side as well here.
And I'll keep it a little bit short. So Nate and I have a very similar career path. We started both in financial services. Both of us came up through organizations that had a passion for the customer experience. And so when we thought about how we could improve the customer experience on an outsourced basis, we both had a passion about that. And so as he mentioned, we started, and like he also said, it took us a while to realize that be able to deliver that kind of experience. And now with over 800 employees across multiple continents, we're seeing a lot better results. Like Nate, I enjoy the outdoors. I tend to like mountain biking, snowboarding, adventure and excitement sports that get my adrenaline pumping.
Nice. That sounds really good. So you guys have a lot in common. That's awesome. Nate, you ever been to Philippines?
I have. I used to live there for 2 years back in the late 90s. And during that time, had the opportunity to learn the language, love the people, the culture, the food, the music, all of it. And so I have a strong affection for Filipinos and Filipino culture.
Yeah, that's true. That's indeed a really beautiful place with a lot of beautiful islands and places to go. Nice. So whenever you're coming next, I guess it's time to bike around and see everywhere in Philippines. Today, going back to the topic, today we're discussing the changing landscape of employee experience. I have a couple of questions here for you here. The first will be basically how you guys build the culture of trust between the management and employee in ClearSource.
Thank you, Valeriya. I can't think of a question that gets more to the crux of the issue and is more contributory to our success than a discussion about trust. And to really understand how important trust is in our environment, it's critical to understand that when the initial BPO explosion in the Philippines happened during the early 2000s, we saw Western companies come and essentially establish operations where operations were largely dictated through policy, process, and procedure. And in my opinion, it was largely a set it and forget it approach. And what was left behind was a culture of fear-based leadership. And I don't point the finger at anyone and blame them for creating that kind of culture. But what I will say is that when you create an environment where everyone is afraid for their job, you start to foster unhealthy levels of competition for promotion opportunities. And this sense of scarcity becomes a race to the bottom, in a sense, when it comes to lack of trust, when it comes to a fear of healthy conflict, which then leads to lack of commitment and accountability issues, and ultimately poor results. And so when we began operating in the Philippines in kind of 2015, 16 and forward, and establishing our own entity in the Philippines towards the end of 2018, it was certainly an eye-opening experience for us to at first kind of figure out how we would navigate that culture, which is so common, where there's a fear on the part of employees to say that they did something wrong, or to give the honest and real reasons why maybe they're not showing up for work today. And the challenge there is you've got a couple of opportunities or solutions. One is you could go around and just fire everybody who doesn't meet your attendance or other policies, or you could, I guess, take a different approach, which is what I'll talk about for just a moment. But before I do, one of the things that I want to say is that for us to earn the trust of our employees, we as leaders have to first trust them almost unconditionally, which is hard to fathom. I learned a lot from Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great. And in his book, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0, he teaches that leaders need to learn how to give their unconditional trust to people, while of course protecting themselves from catastrophic risk through policies and processes, but to give their trust so that they can then earn the trust of their people in return. And you might wonder, you always hear the expression, trust is earned, not given. And I really believe that for us to be successful, and that I attribute a lot of our success to the fact that we teach our leaders to give their trust freely. I'll explain now why this is so important. I want you to imagine that your significant other comes home one day. And the question I would ask you is, if they're in a bad mood, how long would it take for you to realize that they're having a bad day? Usually when I ask people that question, they say a split second. I know the moment they walk in the door that something is off, something's wrong. And the reason we know that is because our mindset is betrayed by our facial expressions, our word choice, our body language, and tone of voice. And when we interact with people that we're familiar with, we know instantly that either things are good or something's wrong. And our employees have that same sense from us as leaders, meaning if we don't trust them, then why in the world would they trust us? They're going to put up their guard, and we're going to have trust issues. And so going back to what I said earlier, that we could either go around firing our people and incurring the very high cost of turnover and attrition, or we could choose to give our trust freely and create an environment where people are doing more than the bare minimum to avoid getting fired. And to create that environment, it takes a very conscious and intentional effort on the part of our leaders. They have to make the decision where they can say, as far as I'm concerned, the problem is me, right? If I'm having an issue with an employee, I say, as far as I'm concerned, the problem is me. And what that means is that I can't control anybody else. I can't go to their house and drag them into work. I can't make them do something they don't want to do. But what I can do is I can change my actions, my behavior, and my mindset so that I create the kind of environment where they would want to do the thing that needs to be done. And so my mindset is I want to create a place where everybody loves their jobs. They're excited about what we're doing and how, as our company achieves its collective goal, that they can take part in the benefits that come with us achieving our collective goal, and thus help them get where they want to go. And when I ask people where they want to go, most people tend to say, I want to create stability and a life with my family where I can do the things I want to do, have the activities that I want, and do those things that give me the most joy. And so when they join our company, what I tell them is I said, look, you don't work for me. You and we work for you. And if I'm entirely focused and my entire leadership team is focused on helping our frontline customer service representatives create the kind of life that they want, sure, it's fulfilling, but even just as importantly are the fact that we're seeing incredible results, as evidenced by very low rates, and I would say industry leading rates of attrition and very low rates of absenteeism, so great attendance. And so we're seeing that engagement. We're seeing people give discretionary effort, doing more than they need to, because we're choosing to trust them first. And so I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is it starts with the leaders and making that conscious effort to create trust through those little actions, those little interactions that we have with our staff on a daily basis.
Would you say that's the case during the pandemic as well? Was it somehow influenced by recent events of COVID-19, or would you say that it just remains the same despite all?
I would say that the onset of the pandemic has created an even greater need, but as well as a greater opportunity for that trust. So what we saw in the beginning of last year, as we started to go on lockdown, was that staff who were in the office immediately went home. And, I think there's been kind of a cultural battle, maybe over the last 20 or 30 years, around the concept of work from home, meaning, if my people are at home and I can't see them all day, every day, do I trust that they're doing their jobs? Do I trust that they're productive? Do I trust that they're doing everything they need to be doing and not taking advantage of me? And I feel that our industry in particular lends itself well to a work from home situation, simply because there are systems that are kind of tracking everything everyone is doing on a daily basis. Now, I don't necessarily believe that those systems need to be utilized in order to confirm distrust or to call out people who we suspect are abusing the system. Rather, what they become is a mechanism by which leaders can foster curiosity to try and understand why someone might be trying to take advantage. Is there some need that they have in their life that maybe they don't know how to fix it, and so they're trying to get it met through this unhealthy way? How could we be curious enough to understand the root causes for their behavior and help them to find a solution that is a win-win for them and for us? So again, just to reiterate, I feel like the pandemic, in some sense, for our business has been a really great thing in the sense that it's enabled us to kind of learn how to better trust our people and create that culture of trust, recognizing that for a period of time, they're going to have to work from home.
Okay, so, all right, and what would be the main suggestions for other companies to manage these dynamic changes and help to support employees during these trend times?
Certainly. The biggest and most important thing is a recognition that trust building must be intentional, number one. Number two, it starts with the leadership team. We can't have an attitude of expecting everyone to earn our trust. We have to choose to trust them. And again, with the caveat being that we still protect ourselves from catastrophic risk. And the third thing I would say is we've got to be patient as leaders. Brené Brown, one of my favorite authors, likens the building of trust to putting marbles in a marble jar, right? So I want you to imagine you've got this glass jar, and each time that I, as the leader, do what I said I would do, or I pay attention to someone's performance and I praise and appreciate or recognize the keeping of commitments, or I do some other trust building action, I get to put one marble in that jar. And over time, that jar fills up with marbles until I might reach a line on the jar, kind of an imaginary line that says, okay, this person trusts me completely. Or in other words, I have become the kind of leader that they want to be led by, and they would follow me anywhere. And when you reach that level of trust where someone would follow you anywhere because they know that you care more about their success than whether or not they like you, amazing things can happen. Coaching conversations become so much more effective because instead of trying to constantly fight or question or be suspicious of each other, you're actually working together in a healthy way to solve opportunities for improvement. The fourth suggestion I would make for some practical tips on building trust, I highly encourage any company or any leader to read with their teams The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. It's a wonderful story that illustrates some key points on not only the importance of trust in terms of how it can help an organization coalesce, but also how it clears a path toward resolving other team dysfunctions, including fear of conflict, lack of commitment, lack of accountability, and inattention to results. So those are the four things I would say that companies can do today to get started on that path.
Yeah, well, Nate and Rob, obviously you guys are in different countries completely, and lockdown and all the ACQ and all the COVID situation being differently handled, when it's whether it's in US or in Philippines. I'm just wondering, for you, Rob, here, how do you say, what are the main things that you can highlight about keeping the culture in place within your team in Philippines? What are the main challenges you have faced so far here?
It's a lot different when we're all together in an office. It's very easy to have those informal, stop by the desk, by the water cooler, in this case, in the canteen, or just have a conversation, check in on somebody, how they're doing. It requires a very mindful approach because even though we have all these communication tools, video, chat, messaging systems, it's really something you've got to consistently use to reach out proactively. And it's tough because it's a whole different way of thinking from being in an office and waving at somebody, smiling at somebody. You lack the body language, you can't always get on video, and so it's a lot more difficult than it used to be. And it requires a whole different way of thinking to build and maintain relationships that you may have had and easily maintained before in the office. And so it's a learning experience for all of us because March 17th of last year, so a little over about a year and a half ago, our world changed here in the Philippines, right?
Yeah,
we had to send everybody home, and we kept a number of people in the office, but for the most part, most people went home.
yeah,
And
that's
leaders had to change.
yeah, that's been pretty crazy. I was running a poll in LinkedIn, so I was basically asking why people would love to get back to the office. What are the main reasons? And surprisingly, a lot of people were not concerned about security or fast connectivity. Most of them actually said that lack of culture, lack of this, communication inside the office, was the main thing why most of the companies, why most of the employees were looking forward to getting back to the office. So luckily,
Absolutely.
luckily you guys are getting back to the office now.
So, fortunately, I actually had some experience with that. For about 10 years, I worked remotely from home, and it was extremely isolating. Not seeing my colleagues, and we didn't have video chat. Well, it just wasn't used, but we did have instant messaging, and it's just not the same. Particularly when the majority of the office staff are together, and you're one of the few people that are remote. It's a very difficult environment. So fortunately, I think we're all in the same situation. We're all experiencing the same reality of being isolated. But it's different. It's hard. We're community people. We want to be around people, and being away and isolated, it's hard. I think people, to your point, people want to get back just to be around other people.
Yeah, that's important. What about you, Nate? I know that you has been a bit more open rather than Philippines, but what are the main challenges, and how do you think is the best way to keep the culture within the team?
Certainly. One of the things that I've found to be really beneficial since everybody did go home was the utilization of video chat, not just for one-on-ones, but for what I'll call town hall events. And in the past, prior to the pandemic, when we were not using a lot of video communication, the logistical challenges associated with getting everybody into an office or into the same room was really daunting, for a town hall event where we could get everybody together at the same time. And the big issue there is that we cover such a wide hours of operation as a 24/7 operator, right? And so it became really difficult to get everybody in at the same time. But what we found is that with video town halls, we've been able to create forums for people to check in with each other, to receive communication direct from, say, an operations manager, and to get their questions answered. And so I think that's one big part of it. The second big part of it that's really important, and we've been able to do this more in the US than the Philippines for the reason you just mentioned, but it's creating opportunities to get everybody together for in-person activities on a regular basis. So a team might get together for lunch once a month or some other activity, and that allows people at least to get together, see each other in person for a period of time, and further strengthen the relationships that are being developed in a remote world, but certainly not as strongly or as quickly as one might experience working in an office.
Interesting. That just wanted to add on the behalf of KMC. Well, me personally, I was working from the office from the day one of pandemic in our headquarters in BHC, and since our company is very much into wellness and health, even tomorrow, for example, we're having this Zoom call where we all gonna be doing Zumba with some trainers. So I guess this is one of the also very interesting way to keep the culture in the company. So like to get together to do some sports, even if it's online, obviously. That's something interesting I could add. And the last question is regarding the workforce distribution. I know that recently, even with KMC, you have this interesting setup where you have your HQ here in Gamma, by the way, and different 3 hubs. So just a couple of words about this. Maybe we can start with Rob. How you guys managing it during the pandemic, and what is the workforce distribution now?
Yeah, so we love the Philippines. We love the culture. We love the people. We love the way that they take care of our clients' customers. Some of the challenges that people have when they go remote is many people don't have a dedicated space to work. Many people's internet is not as reliable as other parts of the world. And some people's power is not as reliable. And so we find these very unique situations where there's a rainstorm or a typhoon or a variety of other things, and their power goes out, their internet goes out. You've got a wonderful cultural audio experience as you listen to motorbikes go by, you listen to roosters in the background. There's a variety of reasons that the experience for the customer may not be the same as it would be in an office, right? And then, in the middle of the night, somebody's internet goes out or their power goes out. And so we've already got 3 permanent offices here in this vicinity. And as we continue to explore ways that we could make office space available to those employees of ours that might have an unexpected event like a power outage or an internet outage, we worked with you and KMC to identify offices that we could set up as emergency use offices. So you can probably correct me in the numbers, but there's 24 sites here in the Philippines that KMC has.
25.
25?
Yeah.
You've added one since I last checked. And so we've picked out 3 different sites that we've got what we call emergency workstations in place. And so right now we've got a reservation system within our own intranet. And so it can be any time, day or night, an employee has a problem. And they can go quickly into that intranet reservation site. They reserve a desk at one of the 3 locations we've got these hot desks at. Mm-hmm. And they show up once they've registered and plug in and go. So they take minimal equipment with them. It's already set up. And they can overcome pretty much any issue they've got. Sometimes you're just wanting to get away from being locked in the house and wanting to be around other people. Sometimes it's power, sometimes it's internet, sometimes it's not a quiet, you can't be noisy, right? It's the middle of the night because most of the clients that we're serving are overnight Philippines, daytime US.
Yeah. Well, great that KMC could help you that much, guys. Yeah, we've been indeed set on exploring different opportunities to help our clients during the pandemic. We have come up with this so-called Triple H solution where we indeed set up an HQ and these hubs, different hubs in 25 locations where the employees have an access from HQ to different hubs. And that's great to hear that you have come up with such a unique solution where it's like not really dedicated seat, not really dedicated to a certain employee, but it's actually a sort of a BCP solution where it can serve as a backup if something happens at home, which is as you said is quite a usual thing in Philippines, to experience this power outage or the network difficulties. This is why we're so proud to have network, which we call Never Go Down Network by KMC. Yeah, well, Nate, do you have anything else to add to our discussion today?
Oh, yeah, just to add on to what Rob just said a moment ago, I think the partnership has been so great for us because we've been able to utilize this unique opportunity to meet our people at their new level of capacity, right? So because of government lockdowns and inability to get decent transportation or for other reasons, internet issues, power issues, transportation issues, all serve to be factors in their life outside of their control that ultimately reduce their capacity. And we've, again, benefited from this partnership because it allows us to meet them at their new level of capacity in order to help them be successful in their roles. So just for us, that's been critical. I think the only thing else that I would add on to our conversation today is just that, we have a huge opportunity. The Philippines is such an awesome outsourcing destination. It's filled with wonderful people who love creating exceptional customer experiences, and everything that we can do to help them have the tools and the skills that they need to be able to do that, to feel successful, to love what they do. At the end of the day, the BPOs or call centers that do that well will have a competitive advantage. There's no doubt in my mind, because you're going to see lower attrition, higher engagement, and better results.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining today. And Nate, thank you so much for your time once again, joining us from so far away. And Rob, thank you for coming for this podcast. For me, it was the first time to do the podcast here in Gamma as well. We have this podcast room, so let's see, maybe it can become something that I do more often. So thank you for being my guest today, and I hope that our listeners enjoyed the topic too. And have a great day. I guess.
Invite. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Valeriya, thanks so much for the opportunity. This was wonderful, and you did a great job for your first time. So thank you so much again, and I hope your day goes well.
Thank you.